Traditionally, potassium has been applied for 2 to 3 growing seasons. However, we're starting to see a shift to more annual applications.
In terms of potassium behavior, there's some real benefits to annual application of potassium.
If you have low cation exchange capacity soils, applying a large amount of any nutrient can be a bad idea. They just don't have the capacity to hold that much potassium, which means if you're applying 2 to 3 years of potassium at a single time, specifically in the eastern Corn Belt, we can experience large rainfall events that dramatically decrease the efficiency of the potassium that we supply.
If you put 2 to 3 years worth of potassium on a low CEC soil, you run the risk of losing it and may not be available for the second and third year of crops nearly as effectively as if you would apply it annually. The second potential issue that you want to avoid is luxury consumption. If we apply more potassium than the crop needs, it simply takes up more whether it needs it or not. Research shows that corn will luxury consume potassium, in some cases 60–70% more than it actually needs.
If we apply annually for each crop, we decrease the potential for that corn crop to take up more potassium than it ultimately requires, and then the soybeans get what they require for their growing season. To compound the issue, a large proportion of the potassium taken up by corn is retained in the stover. So if we harvest stover and we did experience luxurious consumption during the growing season, we're actually increasing the amount of potassium that we're ultimately removing from the soil.
If we don't remove the stover from the field, it may take a period of time for that potassium to become plant available for the following crop. For example, in corn, once the potassium leaves the residue, there's a period of time before it returns to the soil and becomes plant available for that next crop.
The other benefit of annual application is it affords flexibility for the farmer to respond to changing growing environments. For example, if I made an application of potassium for my 2-year rotation with the expectation that my corn crop was only going to yield 200 bushels, but I ultimately harvested 280, I may be shorting my subsequent soybean crop because of inadequate potassium supply.
Another benefit of looking at annual potassium applications is the ability to control your costs. If you're applying fertilizer for 2 to 3 years in a row, you're taking that entire hit in 1 year. If you're doing annual fertilizer applications, you're only paying for the fertilizer you're using in that one given year. A lot of growers are interested in this and they say, hey, this is a wonderful idea, but there's a drawback. If I apply annually, I'm going to have more costs associated with that, so I'm probably going to have twice the application prices. And it is a real concern. If I apply fertilizer for 2 years, that's maybe $7 for 2 years worth. If I apply annually, I incur an additional $7 of application cost. I sort of look at the grower and start asking the question then, well, if it costs you an additional $7 an acre and you're raising soybeans for almost $10 a bushel, you only need about 3/4 of a bushel to pay off that difference. Can you pick up another bushel per acre by making one simple management change? Annual application may not be for everyone. But if you sit down and run the numbers, you'll find that it makes economic and agronomic sense. For myself as a grower, growers that I consult, especially high-yielding soybean growers, they're finding annual application as a very viable and profitable option to managing their potassium needs.